Thank you for tuning in to this Capstone project training. My name is Caroline McKinney, and I'm the Nutrition Innovation Director with the Nutrition Aging Resource Center. I will be walking you through each section of the Capstone project template, the Capstone executive summary, briefly mention a few resources on 508 compliance, and an overall Capstone project tip sheet. Let's get started. So what are these Capstone projects? These Capstone projects are a succinct how-to guide to your NU grantee project. Think about it as if you were talking to a peer. These projects are fundamental for someone that is looking to replicate your project in their own community, as it provides the key items they would need to know. These Capstone projects will live on the NRCNA website, so they are readily accessible to those wanting to learn about your project and replicate it in the future. Thinking about the Capstone project from this perspective will not only help you complete the project, but will best help those looking to learn more and replicate your project in the future. Please refer to your NU grantee reporting calendar to determine if your grant team is responsible for completing a Capstone project. If you have any questions about this, please reach out to your NRCNA TA liaison. Your grant reporting calendar will give you due dates in which the first draft of the project is due, as well as the final project. To put it simply, the timeline is as follows. Capstone projects are due 60 days after the end of the grant period to your NRCNA TA liaison and NRCNA communications manager. The NRCNA team will provide edits and return to you 90 days after the end of the grant period for your review. Final projects are then due 120 days after the end of the grant period back to the NRCNA TA liaison and NRCNA communications manager. If you are granted a no-cost extension, please note your NRCNA TA liaison will provide you with an updated timeline regarding due dates. Please note, you do not need to send this to your ACL PO. I wanted to draw your attention to our website where you can find resources related to the Capstone project. In regards to the template and executive summary, you will see both PDF and Word document versions. The Word document versions can be downloaded and edited. Here, you can also find a guide to 508 compliance with Microsoft applications, which our communications manager created, as well as a Capstone project tip sheet. First, we will start with the project template itself. Before we walk through the document step by step, a few housekeeping items related to the documents. First, throughout the document, you will see yellow highlight and gray highlight. The yellow highlight is related to formatting notes to help guide your writing. These can be deleted once complete. The gray highlight is related to example text. Please highlight to select text, fill in with your grant specifics, and once complete, take the highlight off the text. For the title page, include the grant project name. Please note this should be a catchy title, so readers have a good idea about what your project is about before they dive into the entire document. For principal investigator and authors, please include name, credentials, title, and organization. Include date of the report and your grant number for the ACL disclaimer. Next is the table of contents. Again, I will walk us through each of these sections, but they will include background and purpose, partners and project staff, funding and sustainability, recruitment, tools, project timeline, frequently asked questions, advice for replication, appendix list, and references. Next is the background and purpose. Here you will indicate the goal, objectives, overview of the project, and project results. Please note, for section D, project results, visuals are encouraged. If you choose to include graphs or charts in your Capstone project, when submitting your first draft, please include all data points or the Excel spreadsheet you utilize to create the graph. We asked you to do this so our communications manager can recreate the chart as needed for NRCNA branding purposes. If you have any questions about this, please direct questions to our communications manager or your NRCNA TA liaison, who can get you in touch with the communications manager. For included charts, please include a small descriptor of content. Project results may be broad or those that you feel are most important in demonstrating your work. Next is partners and project staff. Here, you will indicate partners and project staff roles. For Part A, partners, list the name of the partner. In parentheses, indicate what type of partner it is. Is it a restaurant, AAA, university, etc.? This is important as individuals around the country may not be familiar with the specific partners listed. Finally, indicate why they were a partner or the importance of them being a partner. For Part B, project staff roles, first indicate the number of full-time equivalents that it took to run your project or that were involved in your project. Sometimes this is donated time, sometimes this is paid time, both can be indicated. Next is to list staff titles and general responsibilities or high-level responsibilities. The last part of this section is Part C. You may include an organizational chart for your INU project here or in the appendix. However, we do not want this to be an organizational chart for your whole agency. Next is funding and sustainability. For Part A, initial funding, we'd like the specifics of your initial funding. For Part B, continued funding, we'd like the specifics of what your continued funding will look like. And for Part C, sustainability, we'd like for you to indicate ways in which your project will be sustained. This may include components of the project that may be sustained. The recruitment section is broken up into three main areas: A, participants, B, volunteers or students if utilized, and C, marketing tips. For the participants and volunteers or student section, for Part A, list requirements. For Part B, indicate what recruitment methods were successful and not successful. For Part C, marketing tips, indicate again what was successful and unsuccessful. Next is the tools section. For Part A, indicate technology tools that were utilized. This may include tools that streamline your work, technology that participants needed or used for your study or program, or tools that your grantee team used. Part B is similar. Indicate other resources or tools utilized. For all, please list the tool and then a brief description of how it was utilized. For the project timeline section, for each year of your grant, we ask that you divide it out by the season or months or both, whichever way most closely aligns with how you track the timeline of your project. Here, we only want the high points of the project that were necessary within each year. Please note, you do not need to add grant reporting requirements. For example, SF 425 submissions or semi-annual report submissions. For the frequently asked questions section, please list 10 questions and your responses. It may be helpful to think about questions you had along the way. After all, if you had a question, I'm sure someone else will too. For the advice for replication section, please list up to 5 pieces of advice for someone that would be looking to do exactly what you did. It may be helpful to think about what you wish you would have known and what your advice is related to that. You are welcome to list less than 5 pieces of advice, just not more. Please use quotes as appropriate, whether it be from your grantee team or an individual. Second to last in the lineup is the appendix list. This list should first be identified using the letters of the alphabet, then provide the title of the material and a 1-sentence descriptor. This appendix list should only include materials someone replicating your project would need or could use. An extensive list of examples of what to include and what not to include is within the template, so please be sure to review before adding to your list. Please note, Some grantees have asked if they can include their own detailed step-by-step how-to guide to their project. The answer is absolutely. As a reminder, the ACL grant disclaimer that is on the title page populated with your information needs to be on all products produced using the grant funding. Last but not least is the reference page. Please include references as needed and appropriate. List any references utilizing American Medical Association citation. Finally, it is important to note how to submit the project. First, you will submit the Capstone project, which we just walked through, as a Word document. Second, you will submit your appendix materials or attachments in final form as separate attachments. These materials should be in raw form but final form. For example, if you're including a PowerPoint, we would want you to submit that as a PowerPoint, not the PowerPoint in PDF form. Another example would be if you have a Word document. We would like for you to submit that as a Word document, not as a PDF, for example. We ask you submit materials in their raw format so our communications manager is more readily able to check and ensure documents are 508 compliant. 508 compliance will be discussed in the upcoming slides. That takes us through what the Capstone project will look like and what is required. In addition to submitting the Capstone project that we just walked through, you will also need to submit a Capstone executive summary. This should look familiar, as it is the background and purpose page within the project template that we just walked through. The executive summary will also live on the Nutrition Aging Resource Center website. To set the stage as to why this document is important, think about an individual coming to the NRCNA website to find a project to replicate. Most likely, they will read through multiple executive summaries to determine which project they really want to know more about. Once determined, they would then flow to the entire Capstone project itself. Next, I'd like to take this opportunity to highlight 508 compliance. All products, resources, materials, etc. on the ACL NRCNA website need to be 508 compliant. This is due to Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act, which, per the U.S. Access Board, requires access to electronic and information technology provided by the federal government. The law applies to all federal agencies when they develop, procure, maintain, or use electronic and information technology. Federal agencies must ensure this technology is accessible to employees and members of the public with disabilities to the extent it does not pose an undue burden. In other words, all materials that are included within the Capstone will be on the ACL Nutrition and Aging Resource Center site, which is a federal site, meaning all the materials and resources need to be 508 compliant or accessible. If a resource cannot be made compliant by the grantee or the resource center, it may need to be left out. Grantees should make materials 508 compliant so resources can be accessible and usable for all individuals. The Nutrition Aging Resource Center will review items and provide additional edits of the final documents if needed. It is recommended that grantees review the provided 508 compliant trainings at the beginning of their grants so that accessible materials are created throughout the grant cycle. Now we'll turn to a few resources that can greatly assist you with 508 compliance. The 508 Compliance for INU Grantees document provides an introduction to 508 compliance when using Microsoft applications. The August INU 2023 Grantee Gathering features the topic of 508 compliance. The training features what 508 compliance is, why it is important, and how to get started implementing it into documents. Please feel free to reach out to our communications manager at any point, not just when creating the Capstone project, if you have any questions. She is more than happy to help you out sooner rather than later with any questions you may have. Last is the Capstone project tip sheet. This tip sheet provides a high-level overview of this training and frequently asked questions. Thank you for your time and attention today. As always, if you have any questions, please reach out to your NRCNA TA liaison. Thank you.